And what you actually experience in this new beginning is the change that you really wanted in the first place. The change is good.
Yeah.
It's the transition that creates challenges for everybody, especially that time of navigating the neutral zone. And the reality is, all it took was some time and some intentional energy to get everyone there. Welcome to the Blended Family Coaching Show, where you'll discover how to move your step family from just surviving to truly thriving.
Grab your headphones and listen in as we share practical, real-life strategies for building healthy bonds,
Understanding the kids' perspective,
romance and partnership,
parenting with great teamwork.
and yes, even co-parenting with a difficult ex.
We're Mike and Kim Anderson, and we believe with the right tools, every step couple can overcome the common challenges of step family life.
Join us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations to discover how you can lead your family with confidence and create the future you really want.
Well, hey everyone, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. I'm excited today because we have broke over 90 ratings on Apple Podcasts, and I'm super excited about that. We would love to get over 100, so if you could help us out with that, we would really appreciate it. Now, I know a lot of people listen on Apple Podcasts, but there's also quite a few of you who are listening over on Spotify and Google Podcasts and Stitcher. We are so grateful for you. I know that giving ratings and reviews on some of those other platforms is a little different than Apple Podcasts, but I don't want you to feel left out. I keep talking about Apple Podcasts, and we're just so grateful that you're here. So thank you so much for tuning in and listening and spending time with us. We are excited to spend time with you today.
Yeah.
Now, we've all heard, that change is hard. We've heard people don't like change, right? And we tend to believe that everyone in our whole life, including ourselves, is actually resistant to change. And we all just want to stick with the status quo as long as possible. But you know what? Here's the thing. That's just not true. Change isn't really the problem. The problem is transition. So let me try to illustrate this a little bit. There's a really good change that happened in my life. And one of them is that I get to sit here with you, honey, and record these podcasts and hopefully bring value to couples and that kind of thing. And we haven't always done this. We've supported couples for a long time in multiple ways. But the one reason we're sitting here is because I made a major change.
You did.
I came home one day and said, you know, I think I'm going to quit my job, which was an 18-year career at a wonderful place called Superfeet in Ferndale, Washington. We made insoles for hiking boots and ski boots and all kinds of things. And you can attest to this. I love Superfeet.
Yeah, so did I. That's where we met.
That's right. Yeah,
we
of
both
course. Of course I love Superfeet.
We both have a long history there.
That's right. But one day I just came home and said, you know what? I think I'm going to
ready for a change.
Become a life coach, and I'm going to make a change. And I was so excited. It took us a long time to plan it out and figure it out, and it was coming and all that. And it was something that a major change that I chose to make. And I was super excited when I launched out of Superfeet. But, I remember a few weeks in, you were still working a different job and going to work every day. And I was at our home office kind of on my own all of a sudden as an extrovert by myself. And I remember you coming home one day and being like, well, what did you do today? And I'm like on the couch with my bag of potato chips. Like I literally watched like 3 movies today and did nothing.
Yeah.
And the reason that moment was really poignant to me is I was really struggling.
Yeah.
So here I am pursuing this positive, exciting change, but I was stuck in the middle of the transition.
Yeah.
And I was kind of depressed and I didn't quite know what to do. I was really confused at how hard it really was. And transition was kicking my butt.
Yeah, it turned you into a couch potato for a little bit. Which is not like you at all.
Yeah, it was really tough. So, but now here we are on the other side, and we're in the change, and I'm so excited about where we are.
It was a good change.
But man, that transition was hard.
And the truth is, any change, even a change for the better, is always accompanied by discomforts.
That's true.
And that's a quote from author Arnold Bennett. I have a story too.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Of transition. And I'm betting a lot of our listeners can relate to this because it came about as a result of COVID.
Oh, yeah.
We've all had to endure lots of transition and change.
Yep.
But I have a swimming pool that I love. I've been swimming at off and on for over 25 years in our community. It's a YMCA. And you may not know this about me, but I need to swim laps in order to stay healthy.
Well, I know this about
Yes.
you.
Emotionally, physically, mentally. If I'm not in the pool moving, I have a lot of pain and problems.
Yep.
So, of course, all the pools shut down due to COVID. And that was tough. That was, everyone was dealing with that. But at some point, this particular YMCA announced that they would not be reopening my pool.
Yeah.
That just devastated me. I actually went and drove to the parking lot of the pool and cried because it was such a devastating loss for me.
You were grieving.
I was. And I had to transition at some point and pick a new pool. And that was really hard. And it was a transition that I did not choose.
Right.
And it was very difficult. And eventually I did. I'm now swimming at a new pool and I actually like it better.
Yeah.
But that period of transition was so awkward. I missed my friends at the old pool. Everything was different at the new pool, different locker rooms, different schedules. It was hard.
But now you just made a comment that now the pool you're in now you like better.
Yeah. In fact, the old pool has reopened under new management, and I really don't have a desire to go there.
Yeah, you're not going back. So whether it's a change like I initiated of leaving my career and it was a choice I made,
right,
or whether it's a change that gets thrust upon you like this pool where you had no choice, either way, the change might be fine in the end. But it's the transition to getting there that's really the challenge.
Really challenging.
Yeah.
And of course, blending families is a transition. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Why is it so tough? Why is it so hard to blend families? And why does that transition take so long?
Yeah, and it's different perspectives from all the right. family members, right? As we walk through that transition, but keeping in mind that we're headed somewhere toward the change, and it's not the change that really is the problem; it's the transition.
Right.
And with those different perspectives, often I think that as a couple, when we're navigating this transition, that transition is a little bit more like my transition from my old career to my new career. It's a choice. It's something that we're pursuing together as a couple. Right.
Right. We chose to get married and become a family and yeah. But for most kids, transition into blended family life is not their choice. Yeah. This is something that is kind of thrust on them, and they kind of just have to go along with it and figure it out. And so it can be very different perspective for kids.
Yeah. So their perspective, it's more like your perspective with the pool.
Right.
You didn't have a choice.
I didn't ask for this.
That's right.
Now, of course, we have to talk about the average transition time for blending families, and that's 7 years.
Yeah, we've said that.
Maybe you've heard that before. But a critical influencing factor is your intentionality behind how you navigate the process of transitioning. And that's what we want to share with you today. The process of transition that we all experience when life is changing.
Yeah, totally. It makes me think of my area where I focused in university was on leadership. That's where I was introduced to a concept of transition when it comes to organizational leadership, which I love. I kind of geek out on this stuff, right? And one author and speaker named William Bridges, he was kind of the guru in the early 90s around change management. And so much of what I learned about managing transition in the workplace actually applies to family life too.
Absolutely.
I love it when this stuff crosses over, right? So we want to introduce you to his transition model today, but we want to consider it more through the lens of blended family life, of course, because that's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing that, no matter where you're at on the journey, you're likely navigating some transition. That whole 7-year thing that Kim was just talking about on that average. I mean, we've met with couples who are, just starting out on the beginning of those 7 years. And then we've met with others who've been together for like beyond the 7 years, more than a decade, and they're really struggling. But in both cases, when those couples start getting intentional about how they're navigating forward, that's when things start to get better. Yeah. We see that over and over with just about every couple that we work with. So this discussion really is for everyone. It's not just for people who are starting out and navigating transition, because likely wherever you're at, you're probably in some kind of transition. Yeah. So how do we go about picturing this change model on a podcast when we don't get to do slideshows and all that good stuff? As we were talking about this, you had a great idea, honey, about it's kind of like an ice cream sandwich. Yeah. Right?
Kind of like that.
And it's like 3 different parts to the ice cream sandwich, and we're just going to walk through one at a time.
Yeah, right? There's 3 sections. First, you have, the first cookie. And we're going to say that this first cookie part of the ice cream sandwich represents an ending. And it's a little bit confusing here because what we're talking about actually starts out feeling like a new beginning, right? Yeah. We're starting this new blended family journey. This is our new beginning. Yep. But in reality, it's an ending point.
That's right.
Because the moment that everyone moves under the same roof, you've now triggered an ending. And endings are all about losses. William Bridges identifies 7 different types of losses. Yeah. We want to talk about those and call them out, because the opposite of being intentional around this is being blindsided.
Right.
So we don't want to be blindsided by the losses that we're experiencing and that the kids are experiencing. We want to understand them. So let's talk about some of the losses that come along when there is an ending.
Yeah, which we think is actually the beginning.
Yeah. Right? And you'll see why in a minute, why it's an ending. So one type of loss is turf loss, right? Now we have to share space, and now we're stocking different foods. I've lost my shelf in the bathroom. I'm having to share a bedroom with a new step sibling, and my step parent now, invades this part of the house where I used to hang out. Whether you're merging into one or the other home, or even when you're, starting out fresh in a new home, there's turf loss there.
Absolutely. Another one is attachments. Kids are really attached to focused time with their parents. Yeah. That can be really challenging to say, well, wait a second, somebody's invading that attachment for me. Yeah. Or maybe they've had to move and they miss their friends from their old neighborhood. Yeah. That's an attachment, or moved schools. I mean, I've experienced that, when I left Superfeet, even though it was a great change, I had a lot of good friends there.
Right.
I had some attachments, and it was tough to not be around that all the time anymore, even though that was a really great change.
Yeah. I even got attached to the swimmers at my old pool, who now I really never see.
Totally. Yep.
Another loss is loss of structure. This is a big one for blended families, right? Yes. There's schedules, there's new house rules, new expectations, there's chores. Yeah. We really struggled around this one for a long time, because Mike is a very structured person. He has a very structured approach to life, where I'm much more free flow.
Yeah, if you would just get some structure in life, honey, everything would be fine.
So Mike really likes to know what's going on.
Yep.
He likes to know, if I'm going to be late or what's going on. And for me, it's like, no, I've had a say in everything I do up until now. I don't want to give that up. Yep. Why do you need to know those things? And so this caused a lot of friction.
Absolutely. Yeah. Structure is hard. Another one is our thoughts about the future.
Yeah.
Right. When we're putting everybody under one roof, maybe there's a marriage or signing of a lease, whatever's going on, and all of a sudden the kids are realizing things are about to change. Their question is, what does this mean for me as a child?
Moving forward.
They might ask the question, am I losing part of my parent? Am I losing part of my say? Am I losing that future dream of maybe my bio parents reconciling someday? Right. That's a tough question for kids to experience. but there's some sort of a loss of the picture that they had for the future.
Yeah.
And we all have to navigate that loss often. Yeah.
Another one of the losses that is identified in this model is loss of meaning and purpose. And this can really be connected to loss of family culture, who we are as a family, who do we want to become as a family unit.
Yeah.
That can get really difficult to understand and navigate.
Sure. Or how about loss of control?
Ooh, that's a biggie.
haven't the kids lost more control than anyone?
Absolutely.
Right? When you think about it, the kids didn't ask for any of this transition or change, yet they have to continue on along with us, right?
Yeah.
And that's everything from simple choices like, where are we going to go out to eat for dinner tonight?
Yeah.
Where they used to maybe have a strong influence. Now maybe they've got a whole other set of step siblings who also influence that decision. And that's a loss for them.
Everyone's weighing in now. They've lost control over that.
Yeah. So that's just one little thing. It also goes out into bigger issues. Like I mentioned earlier, maybe they had to move neighborhoods or schools, and that's a big loss of control. And you know what? The adults have had some loss of control as well.
Oh, yeah.
One major area that we hear about all the time is parenting. As single parents, you could make all the decisions about what was going to happen in your home from a parenting perspective 100% autonomously for your home.
Yeah, nothing was ever challenged.
Now, all of a sudden, you've got this partner that you really need to consult with, and you have to figure out the negotiation. And so you have to at some level give up a little bit of control when it comes to parenting. And that's just one area. There's all kinds of areas we lose control.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Another area of loss is loss of identity. This can be especially true for kids. Some of them will lose their birth order if they were used to being, the baby of the family and getting lots of attention. And now in come the step siblings with, I'm no longer the baby. Yeah.
Or the oldest one. Yeah.
Right.
Oldest becoming a middle child can really be challenging.
Yeah. Shifting from a single parent family identity to this new blended family identity, that can be very difficult. And, we're talking about kids that have already gone through this when they experienced either the divorce or the separation process of their parents. They lost that first family identity. So there can be a lot of loss here. And the reality is there will be different challenges for each person around each type of loss.
Yep. And keep in mind that you can experience, in fact, you will experience loss even in the positive changes. So just like my move from Superfeet to pursue a new career of life coaching and doing what we do to support blended family couples and all of that, that was a really positive change in my life. But I had to navigate a lot of losses as I went through that.
All 7 of these.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And it's true for the negative losses as well, just like your move of the pool that you didn't have a choice in. And it was really something you had to grieve and really work through. And the greatest changes, the best changes in our life always still involve loss.
Yes.
And we have to understand that. So we've got 7 different types of losses that William Bridges identifies, and these are ones you can think through. It's turf, attachments, structure, future, meaning and purpose, control, and identity. That's a lot of loss. Now, regardless of if you choose that change or you have it thrust upon you, at some point you're going to have to choose how you respond to the losses.
Absolutely.
That's true for your kids. That's true for you. And Bridges proposes that there are typically 4 different types of responses to the losses that we experience, and he calls them the 4 R's. The 4 R's are to restore, replace, redesign, or relinquish. So let's unpack this just for a little bit. Earlier, we talked a bit about this struggle we had around structure.
Yes, lots of structure.
Yep, I'm a planner. I want to have things planned out and structured. You are a free spirit, and you just want to go with the flow.
I'm more spontaneous.
Yeah, both of us experienced a lot of loss and some conflict and some challenges there, and we had to figure out how are we going to respond to that loss?
Yes.
We could have just said, or either of us individually could have said, well, I want to restore this. That's that first R, restore. And that means, you know what? Forget it. I'm going back to my single days where I can have my own sense of structure, right? Everything was just easier before we got together. So let's just go restore what we had before.
Okay. So restore is going back.
Going back,
Yeah,
grabbing a hold of.
I'm not going to transition.
Exactly.
Not going there.
I'm digging my heels in. That's right. Now, we could have said, well, okay, I guess I need to replace my structure.
The second R is replace.
Yeah. And so maybe I'll adopt a different way to maintain my structure. And, for me, I could have become really passive aggressive. Well, okay. Let's say that truthfully. I did become very passive aggressive.
Sometimes aggressive and demanding. Even.
That's right. In our life, because I was trying to figure out how to create structure in a environment that I didn't have full control over.
Right.
And so I was trying to replace what I had in the new area of life that I was in.
Right.
And it wasn't working very well.
No, it did not.
So a third response to those losses is redesign. And I think this is an area that we really dive into a lot with couples. But
Yes.
for this whole structure thing, I had to start figuring out how I was going to build a plan to approach you, honey, and initiate different ways to talk about planning and structure in our home and really choose to work with you so that we could redesign what structure actually looked like.
Right.
For us in this particular situation, that worked well.
Yeah, that was creating some teamwork to redesign the structure.
Exactly. The other thing I could have done is I could have just relinquished, which is the fourth R. And really that just means I'll just abdicate. I'll just do it your way. You can do anything you want. But ultimately that probably for me would have led to a lot of resentment. And that wouldn't have worked. There's times where we need to relinquish things. There's times where we need to redesign. There's times where we need to replace. And there's times where we need to restore. But in this particular area, we had to choose.
Yeah.
How are we going to deal with this particular loss?
Right. We need to do that around all 7 losses.
Exactly.
We need to understand how are we going to respond.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? I think that when we get to meet with new couples, when they reach out to us and schedule a free consult, I think they're at this place where they've experienced a lot of loss, and maybe in all 7 of those categories.
Yeah, or their kids are experiencing it too.
Sure. They're in some pain, and they're at the decision point, trying to figure out, what are we going to do next?
Yeah.
How are we going to move forward? And maybe what they haven't realized yet is what they're actually trying to figure out is, are we going to figure out a way to restore what we had in the beginning? We were so in love and everything was great, but they find out, but gosh, it's hard to go back. So do we replace that with something else?
If so, with what?
What does that look like? What does that even mean? Do we redesign? And I think that's really an area where we come in the coaching.
Right. That's about strategizing and working as a team.
Absolutely. Or do we just relinquish?
Let things
Are we
go.
done? Yeah. And I think that's a tough spot to be.
Yeah. And we have to choose our response. We really do, because if we don't choose, then we get stuck.
Yeah.
And this is tough because you might have the capacity to choose your response, but a lot of kids, especially the younger kids, even adolescents and teens, they don't necessarily have the emotional maturity or the capacity to intentionally choose one of these 4 R's. And so they get stuck. And where they get stuck is in what Bridges calls the neutral zone.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we got to get back to our ice cream sandwich then. So we had that first cookie, which is all about the endings.
Right.
And it really encompasses the losses and all
what
of
we're
that.
going to do with the losses.
Now we're going to pile up some ice cream on that cookie, right? And you can think about that ice cream as the neutral zone. It's the center of the sandwich. It's usually the biggest part of the sandwich, and it's not very solid.
It's messy.
Soft and it's squishy and it's messy and it runs all over the place. I think about our local fair we go to every year. Well, we didn't get to go to last year because it was shut down for COVID, but When we go to the fair, there's those Moowiches, those big, giant ice cream sandwiches with the chocolate chip cookies like we're talking you can barely get your mouth around them. They're so big because there's so much ice cream in there. That's what that neutral zone is like. And after a little while, it starts to get melty and messy and dripping down my arms and off my elbows and all of that. And that's what the neutral zone sometimes feels like.
Yeah. The neutral zone is the period during which people have to let go of the old ways, but they haven't yet fully adapted to the new. It's very awkward and precarious and delicate.
We're so excited to let you know about something brand new we've created just for you.
We've realized that with so many episodes available here on the show, it might feel a bit overwhelming to find the topics that matter most to you. That's why we've created a simple tool for you to receive a personalized playlist focused on your current struggle or your biggest challenge.
That's right. It's called the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz. You'll answer just a few questions, and based on your responses, we'll email you a curated custom playlist of episodes that are specific to you.
This simple quiz will direct you to the most impactful episodes that pertain to you personally and keep you on track in your journey of discovery, learning, and growth. So, scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes for this episode and click the link to take the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz today.
Okay, let's get back to the discussion. That's that 7 years you're talking about, right?
Yeah, the blending period.
Yeah.
And the truth is we all need help navigating the neutral zone, and our kids really do need support.
So do we.
Yeah, it's not easy. And there are some intentional ways that we can support each other and support our kids.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of couples are really surprised when they start experiencing the neutral zone because a lot of times it feels like it keeps getting worse.
Absolutely. Every day is worse than the one before. Right?
Yeah. And they tend to have this buyer's remorse, right? What have I gotten myself into?
Yeah.
And we start to doubt ourselves and we start to experience fear and a lot of discomfort. And although it is a growth process overall, it's not an easy one.
Right.
It can be really difficult. And kids experience the same thing. And often they focus on their own discomforts and their doubts. Because remember, they didn't even choose this big change like you did.
That's
so
right.
It can be really, really messy.
Absolutely. They're throwing a fit because their pool closed and they want to get back to the same old pool.
Yeah, they just want what they want.
That's right. And the thing is, this neutral zone, it's big and it's nebulous and it's filled with uncertainty and it's filled with fear.
A lot of fear.
And if you're already in it, maybe several years, maybe you're past that 7-year average, things just don't seem to be getting any better. If that's you, it might be because you're stuck in the neutral zone. But once you start to intentionally navigate the neutral zone, there's actually a tremendous opportunity in that. In fact, you just mentioned it, honey. Most of our growth and our progress as we're releasing an ending and dealing with the loss, trying to get to that new change that we want to reach, it's usually a growth process.
Yeah.
And that's where we grow, is in the pain. And that growth is not going to be linear.
No.
It's not always going to be up and to the right? It's going to be those 2 or 3 steps forward and then another step back and then a few more steps forward and maybe 2 steps back. And it can be really challenging. But if we were to actually graph it out, and we talk with clients about this all the time, if we were to actually graph out from the time we started working with you until now, have we made progress? And the truth is, yes.
Yeah.
It hasn't necessarily been easy, but we've made progress.
Yeah. And it's never as fast as we want it to be.
That's for sure.
That's just the reality.
Sure. Yep.
But in most cases, when you're in that neutral zone, experiencing all that discomfort, the worst thing you can do is give up and go back.
Yeah.
Back through another separation or divorce, back to my single days where I had a sense of control, or maybe worse yet, is to quit and stay. Maybe I'm going to stick around in this relationship physically, but I'm going to close down on you emotionally or relationally.
Yeah, that can be really dangerous.
That's really not good. So what you need to do is navigate the neutral zone in a way that allows you to choose your response to the loss you've experienced. One of those 4 R's likely holds the key to success for you.
Yep.
But when you're aimlessly wandering the neutral zone, slogging along, stuck in the ice cream, so to speak, your choices actually get made for you. Because you're not able to let go of those losses yet. And if you're gripping so tight with both hands onto those losses, then you've got no capacity to grasp something new.
Yeah. You're too busy holding on to those old things that you don't want to allow to become endings. And now your hands are full.
Yeah.
And you can't actually grasp that new thing that you're trying to create.
Yeah, you're stuck in the neutral zone.
Yeah. If you're not choosing one of the 4 R's, one of those 4 R's are choosing you.
And, kids probably need the most support around all of this. But we can also be intentional in how we support each other as a couple when we're in that neutral zone, trying to figure it out and experiencing a lot of pain.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've experienced these endings. We got our first little cookie, then we just piled it with the neutral zone ice cream, and we're slogging through it, but we've got to figure out how to navigate it. So let's talk about the rest of our time today. Let's use some time to talk about what the tools are that can actually help us navigate through that neutral zone. And William Bridges has a couple things for us. One of them he calls the 2 C's, and they are care and concern. So let's talk about care. Care is really all about affirmation and acknowledgement of the reality of the other person.
Right.
Maybe it's your spouse. They're struggling through whatever loss that they might be experiencing. Maybe it's your kids. Or one kid. Maybe it's your stepchild. But the point about care is that we're helping reaffirm to that other person, you know what? It's okay that this is hard.
Right.
It's okay that you have doubts about this. And I want you to know that we're going to get through this together. We're not going to try to, now I'm really great at fixing it, right? I'm good at going into fix it mode.
Yep.
We're not going to try to gloss over it or fix it or redirect their attention or any of that. We're just going to affirm and acknowledge, yeah, you know what? This really is hard.
Yeah.
And I'm here with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is where we sometimes get stuck thinking, oh, kids are adaptable. This will be easy, no problem. But kids experience loss deeply.
Absolutely.
And we have to understand that we need to have some empathy around that.
That's right.
Now, the second C is concern.
Okay.
And
Care and concern.
Yeah, this is all about coming alongside our kids or each other and doing some active listening. Helping them feel heard and known.
Yeah.
Right. Even in the mess. And you don't have to agree with their perspective in order to show some concern. Everyone comes in with their own perspective, and that's okay. It's important to understand this because you're likely going to be in a very different place than your kids when it comes to navigating the neutral zone.
Sure. They
need to feel heard, even if you don't get what they're going through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even when they don't get their way.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I've seen that in our relationship as well. There's times where, maybe I don't get my way or you don't get your way. But when we take the time to really make sure that like when I take the time to make sure you've been heard, even if we end up, going with something that you didn't really want, it usually goes a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, in our pool example, when I lost my pool, honey, you were really instrumental in listening to my concerns and helping me grieve through it. And then you also encouraged me to try the other pool in town, which I was so against. I had all these stories in my head of how awful it was going to be.
I know. I thought I was going to have to drag you and just throw you in.
But you really were encouraging, and you kind of said, well, just try it and see what you think. And, what's the worst that could happen? And you were really helpful in those moments, rather than just kind of shutting me out.
Yeah.
you might be in a very different place as a couple as you transition as you're in the neutral zone, especially around parenting, right?
Man, that's right.
But it's really helpful if you can both experience some concern from one another.
Yeah.
And you can do this by simply helping each other feel heard.
Yeah.
A lot of times, honey, you didn't get your way when it came to parenting.
That's true.
But I did take the time to listen and to hear your point of view and to thank you for it even sometimes. Not always, but sometimes.
Well, I think, early on when it came to parenting, we really struggled. We had knockdown, drag out battles on our hands a lot of the time. But over time, I think you figuring out how to help me as the step parent feel heard actually made it a lot easier for us to partner. And when I genuinely knew, like, you got what I said, but then you were able to say, well, I hear you, and here's what I think I really need to do.
Right.
And I learned to let you do that. Once we hit that rhythm, parenting got a lot easier for us.
But you felt heard. I didn't just shut you out.
That's right.
Yeah. So the 2 C's are absolutely critical for navigating through the neutral zone. You cannot do without them.
Yeah.
When any member of your family does not feel care and concern for their perspective, their hurts, their hang-ups, whatever it is they're dealing with, they can easily get stuck in the neutral zone. And the sad part is they never really are able to reach what might be possible for your family relationships.
Yeah.
There can be some barriers that are created in the neutral zone if we aren't giving that care and concern that everyone needs. So important.
Totally. So throughout this transition process, we all need to experience the 2 C's. You need to give that gift to your spouse, to your kids, and your stepkids.
Even if you don't understand what they're going through.
That's right. And then as a couple, you can get really practical in leading your family forward using the 4 Ps. Now,
the 4 Ps.
Apparently, William Bridges was like the king of alliterations or something, right? We've talked about the 4 R's and then the 2 C's, and now we're down to the 4 Ps.
Yep.
But nonetheless, he's done a great job of laying this model out. So we're navigating this neutral zone. Not only do we have to care for the people, but as a couple, we're called to be the leaders of our household.
Right.
We've got to lead these kids, regardless of whether we've got 1 or 10 or 15. We've got to lead them through this neutral zone so that they can embrace something new.
Yeah.
And Mr. Bridges gives us this model of the 4 Ps in order to do that. So let's get really practical around how we're going to lead them forward. The 4 Ps are purpose, picture, plan, and part. So let's break that down. Now, the purpose answers the question, why are we doing this? There's going to be times over and over as a couple that you need to be able to look each other in the eye and remind each other why you're putting this work in. It's because we love each other. It's because we want to do life together in a meaningful way.
Right.
It's because we want our kids to see a great example of marriage. It's because we want to lead our children to something new that they can experience. Like you might have a million different whys of why you're moving forward with your blended family. And there's going to be times where you're going to have to remind each other about what that why is, the purpose, really staying focused on the purpose.
Yeah. I mean, when I think about our situation, it would be hard for me to articulate to Annika the purpose early on of why we're blending.
Yeah.
I don't think she would really care that I was in love with you and wanted to do life with you and couldn't imagine life without you. I don't think that
She's
would
like
have mattered.
7 years old. Like, I don't care, Mom. I just want what I want.
Yeah. But over time, she caught the purpose. And she says now, I get why you married Mike, and Mike is really good for you, and you guys are a good pair, and I understand why things didn't work out with my dad. I mean, the older kids they see things and they start to understand, and they understand the purpose of why you even began this blended family journey.
Yep.
But in the beginning, You may not be able to articulate a purpose to your kids.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That they're going to care much about, but you can definitely communicate that to each other.
I think so.
Continually.
And I think you need to. Yeah.
You do.
Even in those moments of tension, like I think we've told this story probably multiple times on the podcast, but when you and I were locked in battle at times, there were times where I squared off with you shoulder to shoulder and looked you right in the eye and said, "Hey, this is hard, but I love you. And we're gonna make it. We're gonna get through this.
It's gonna be okay."
That was a very simple purpose reminder. Hey, we're in love. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I'm committed to you.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's the first P, purpose. What about picture?
Picture answers the question, what is the outcome going to be like? Right? You want to see the big picture.
Yeah.
Now, this is an area where we focus with couples to discover their shared values.
Yeah.
And we encourage them to get crystal clear on that. Now, if you can define a purpose for your blended family, who you really want to be through what we call your desired destinations, then you're helping everyone picture that vision of what you're aiming for and rallying everyone around the shared meaning and the purpose of your blended family, who you're becoming as a family.
Yeah, so it's really about a vision of the future and being able to picture that and talk about that.
Yeah, it can be exciting.
Yeah. And those shared values or those desired destinations are often places where even kids can tap into.
Sure.
They want to experience respect. Yeah. They want to experience a little autonomy that comes with responsibility, right? They want to experience success in their adulthood someday.
They want to be prepared.
Exactly. So they can catch that vision and you can help paint that picture for them. So that's what that's all about, is painting the picture. So we've got purpose, we've got picture. The third P is plan. And plan answers the question, well, what does the path to getting there actually look like?
Right. How do we get to that desired destination?
That's right. Super practical. once you've painted the picture, the vision, you've got to get really practical with each other and with the kids. We coach couples to identify often where their biggest concern or pain point is when it comes to the behaviors that are actually happening in the home. And then we walk through some collaboration to figure out, well, what's just one action step that's going to move us closer to the goal, closer to the picture?
Or what's one strategy we can apply?
Yeah, exactly. So the plan part of navigating this neutral zone, it's all about chunking things down into doable steps and then taking action. It's all about the nitty gritty. It's if I'm slogging through my ice cream sandwich, it's the single bites that I'm taking in order to get that giant sandwich consumed. Right?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard you use the term chunking.
Chunking. I like it. Chunking down. I'm thinking about the ice cream sandwich.
Yeah, is that what you do when you eat one of those? You chunk it on down.
Pretty much. So we've got purpose, we've got picture, we've got plan. What's the fourth P?
The fourth P is part. And part answers the question, what is my role in all of this?
Okay, I get it. So
part?
What part do I play? Okay.
Now,
I think he was reaching a little bit.
Yeah,
on that one.
He was trying to get that fourth P in there.
That's right.
Now, we often, honey, we help couples navigate through this, especially when it comes to parenting roles.
Sure.
To be effective as a team, the role each of you play might be very different depending on your unique blended family dynamics.
Yep.
But most of us navigate the neutral zone just winging it. Oh, we'll figure it out. Rather than intentionally defining and embracing the role that's most appropriate for us and what's really the right and best way to go about implementing these roles in our family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So often with kids, defining their role can be reasonably simple, right? Saying something like, this is what I need from you, honey.
Yep.
In kind of, an invitation manner of keeping it really positive as opposed to heavy-handed direction. This is what you need to do.
Yeah, that's good.
You want to keep it light. Now, an example here might be around respect and civility towards a step-parent. Versus you have to love that step parent.
Yep. We can't demand love, can we?
Right. So defining a child's role for them might sound something like this. Honey, here's what I need from you when it comes to how you treat your stepdad. I need you to be respectful and responsive, just like you would with your teacher or your coach. You need to speak in a respectful manner and acknowledge when they say hi to you.
Yeah.
That's
It's as simple as that. Yeah.
That's your part.
Yeah, totally.
So to navigate the neutral zone, which could take several years, by the way.
Yeah, but just 7. Yeah.
There's no easy fix here. You will need to focus on offering everyone those 2 C's, care and concern, and you'll need to be intentional in using the 4 P's. Purpose, picture, plan, and part to help get everyone through the neutral zone to the other side.
That's right. And you can do all this with dedication, commitment, perseverance, and grit. In fact, you probably need all 4 of those. But when you stick with it, then at some point, you're going to wake up and discover, hey, we're starting to get through to that final piece of the transition. And that is genuinely embracing what Bridges calls the new beginning. Whoa, yeah. Oh, that's nice. You know, that new beginning, that's that second cookie that you're going to put on top of the sandwich.
Yay.
Right? It's the point where things start to feel more complete. They start to feel settled. We start to feel like, oh, we're finally getting it. Things are starting to click. And you realize that this is what you set out to experience in the first place.
Right.
It might actually look a little different than what you envisioned all those years ago or months ago. But many of the things that you really wanted are starting to come into focus, and everyone seems to be moving forward a little bit more together than you've ever experienced before.
Right. You start to get your groove as a family.
Exactly. And what you actually experience in this new beginning is the change that you really wanted in the first place. The change is good.
Yeah.
It's the transition that creates challenges for everybody, especially that time of navigating the neutral zone. And the reality is, all it took was some time and some intentional energy to get everyone there. And suddenly, we seem a lot happier and a lot more at ease.
Yeah, the tensions have gone down.
Exactly. So again, it's really not about avoiding change. It's about navigating the transition in an intentional and a positive way.
Absolutely. So as you're moving forward with necessary change, which we all have to do, remember that everyone in your blended family is going to have to experience some kind of ending. Which always comes with losses. Okay, we don't want to underestimate the loss that everyone has experienced. We want to be able to face it and work through it. We'll also need to navigate the neutral zone between letting go of the old and embracing that new. So everyone is going to need a lot of care and concern along the way. And when we do all this well, we might just find that everyone ends up better off once the new beginning is actually reached and embraced and accepted. And you can get there. You really can. It just takes time and intentionality.
And we'd love to help you. If you want to find out how you can navigate that neutral zone a little better, reach out and schedule a free coaching call with us, and we'd be happy to talk with you.
Or if you feel stuck, or if you feel like one of the kids is stuck, we can definitely help you to strategize around how to get unstuck.
That's right. That's right. Well, great. That wraps up our discussion around how to navigate through that transition and get to embrace the change we're really after. I wonder, what are we talking about next time?
Well, next time we're talking about how to handle a difficult ex if you're the second wife.
Ooh.
And the ex-wife seems to have something against you.
Oh, that sounds a little bit spicy.
It's going to be spicy, and unfortunately, it's a reality that we need to talk about it, and there are some things you can do.
Great. Well, for now, that's going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.